So if you missed it last week, Tarkov's developers, they came out and announced like a $250 addition to the game. And this had all sorts of like, honestly, pay to win gameplay affecting stuff. Private access to PvE modes, which would carry progress over to the rest of the game. Like, across the board, this just was a bafflingly stupid decision. And people that paid for the $100 version weren't even getting included with it, even though they paid for a season pass that promised all future DLC. Like, across the board, everything that could have gone wrong or every stupid mistake they could have made with this DLC, they made. And now they're trying to backtrack from it a wee bit. So they posted, or Nikita Buyanov took to Reddit to discuss everything and basically offered a handful of like, the general vibe was, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or, you know, it's like that toxic apology style where it's like, I'm not sorry I did something wrong. It's, I'm sorry you felt that I did something wrong. You know, it's that kind of thing. That's basically what this is. They say, first of all, PvE game mode, this is not a DLC. I mean, it is an additional piece of content that you download, so technically. Yeah, it's the cable guy from South Park, yeah. We're sorry. We're sorry. Yeah, it's just like, okay. I mean, let's hear him out, I guess. Let's hear him out. DLC, in our understanding, okay, so if they're not right, it's just their understanding is wrong. Is the major additions to the game, including various functionality and content that are released after the official release of the game as a themed DLC pack. Scav Life DLC, for example, which will add a lot of new mechanics and content for Scav gameplay and leveling. I mean, you're just saying in our understanding. So their definition of DLC when they promised it would include all future DLC was not what everybody else understands DLC to be, which is additional content you can pay for to add on to the game. They're saying it's something else. It's like a dedicated game mode, or it's like a spin-off game or something. But either way, this is a bit of a stretch. Secondly, this specific functionality of the PvE mode is not necessarily, or rather is necessarily located entirely on a separate network infrastructure, because essentially you play on our servers only in closed mode. At this stage, it is not possible to launch all players who are EOD holders. Right now, we simply do not have the required amount of resources for this. We observe your dissatisfaction. We see you're upset. We're sorry. And I've decided that the functionality of the PvE mode will be available for free to all owners of the EOD version at the release of the game, when the server infrastructure will be improved to the required capacity. So they're like, we're going to give you access eventually once we've paid for more server infrastructure and built that out. And you have to have been an EOD version holder at the release of the game. And even then they say you have the opportunity to test this mode by purchasing the unheard edition of the game. So you can still buy the $250 version of the game or upgrade to this version. We also decided to give a 50% discount when upgrading to the unheard version from the EOD version. So naturally people read all of this, and you can see 5,000 comments and it's zeroed out. People were not that thrilled with this. So they went and made like a further update yesterday. And they said, greetings, let me continue my feedback on the current situation. First of all, I'd like to say we're very sorry that that fans and the game community in general are experiencing these feelings. So again, we're sorry you feel that way. We're sorry you have these feelings. It's just so toxic. Unfortunately, I somehow did not foresee the fact of such a reaction, and now I have drawn conclusions for my future decisions. Here's the deal. I cannot fathom a world in which they did not know this was going to happen. Like, either they knew this was going to happen and they were braced for it, but they just thought that they were untouchable and people would suck it up and pay for it. Or maybe they get some blowback, but they'd get enough money that it would just not be that big of a deal. Or they are the most out of touch, disconnected developers and publishers like I've ever seen. The fact that they thought this was going to be received even placidly is shocking. It's stunning. So Both possibilities are not great. They knew that this was either they knew this was going to be received poorly and they just didn't care, or they really had no idea this was going to be received poorly, which would almost be worse, because how disconnected do you have to be to think that a $250 version of a game that's already out, that has gameplay affecting stuff in a competitive game that's online where players are effectively competing, the fact, like, for them to think that that was going to be a solid option is so ridiculous. But anyway, he continues on. Now I will briefly summarize the main points. Number 1, about PvE access. We decided to just open it for EOD owners for free, but we will do it in waves. As I said before, we don't have server capacity right now. We will start this process as soon as possible. My stance is that they just shouldn't have private, that like just create a big server queue, let people in, like even just to have this as a private, like additional purchase. Because even with all this, you still have to be an EOD holder or owner, or this $250 version of the game. If you just bought the base game, you don't get access to this. And I still think that that's stupid. Having game modes that are locked away behind like certain price points, I hate that. I think it's stupid. Like, I've complained about it in many, many games if they lock certain game modes behind paywalls, and I think it's ridiculous. Like, and it burns so much goodwill so quickly. So even this solution, like, it's the core of the Tarkov problem right now is that there's kind of two factions of people that are really upset. There's EOD holders and owners that are upset because they bought this thing that said they would get all future DLC. They announced this thing that they weren't getting included on, and so now they're like, screw you guys, give me access to it. I already paid, and I believed in your project. I put the money up front years ago, and now you're screwing me over. And then there's the other group, which is just pissed that they're creating 2 tiers of players in addition to the other thing. Like, they're upset about that, but they're also upset that they're locking PvE behind a paywall, that they're introducing paid gameplay altering mechanics and stuff. And so you have 2 factions, people that are really, really pissed. And even this is meant to address only the people that are paying at least $100 for the game. So this whole design, or this whole response, is crafted around trying to make the pay pigs happy and the whales in the game happy. It's not about keeping the broader community satisfied, which is why even this solution, while it's better than what they did before, it still doesn't fix the problem that they're charging for a separate game mode and game altering stuff. It's crazy. We also decided that we will add mod support for PvE mode after the release of the game. So again, we'll fix it after. About the Unheard Edition, we will not remove it. We want to keep the option for those who want to support the game more. But we will balance items, perks in this edition, as well as we will provide more rewards for those who upgraded with the old price. So again, they're not getting rid of it. I mean, and as you saw in the first response, their whole thing is like, now they're not doing a discount. Like, they want to just include that. Maybe they are still doing a discount technically, but maybe I'll get there in a second. But again, it's just, they're keeping that there for the whales to buy into, and they're just hoping that everybody else moves on and ignores it. But thankfully, it seems like the community in general is not responding too well to this. At this point, like, I just don't know why you would play the game. Even if you like the game, they've made it very, very clear. They don't really care about you, and they're trying to milk you for all you're worth. And it's the talking down that's particularly ridiculous. But I mean, this is why it's good to respond very forcefully when companies first start doing this thing. There's companies like EA, like Ubisoft, like Take-Two Interactive, or Activision, that have been aggressively monetizing all sorts of stuff for like 15, 20 years. And that's part of the reason those companies are multi-billion-dollar companies, because they, like, it's normalized now. Their communities are used to it. It's part of the reason why, like, Take-Two Interactive thought they could just easily splice in the ads into playing, like, NBA 2K. So, like, if you go into NBA 2K, like, they added this into NBA 2K21. This is an article from a handful of years ago. But you see, like, they were like, oh, everybody's used to watching ads when they play, or when they watch a basketball game or a football game, whatever. So they're like, let's just put ads into the video game and it will be normal for those players. If they're used to watching sports, they will play the game, and then in the middle of the game you paid for, there are ads playing. But it's because it's normalized. Like, it gets normalized, so they just go, whatever. And the second that you put up with it a little bit, the companies will just continue to do it, and then you just suck it up. Also, Nikita in a leaked interview called the EOD people and others who didn't buy the new edition freeloaders. Wow. Yeah, well, that's the vibe you get from all of this, is that there's almost a contempt for the players that are getting the game at the base level. There's no like appreciation. Thank you for just playing the game. It's all just like, well, no, you need to buy the premium edition. And, you know, even if you don't do that, like, you need to upgrade to it. Like, it's all just insane. Like, they are taking their community for granted through and through. And they're going to get away with it unless people stop playing and unless people put the controller down and go play something else and vote with your wallet. Like, it's just, it's crazy. Trust me, we hated the ads. It's just that we're a vocal minority. There's always millions of people who just don't care. Well, exactly. And that's the thing with like Tarkov, at least, is that Tarkov seems to be a much more, and I'm not in this community, but it seems to be that Tarkov is a more tight-knit community with a lot of content creators, with streamers, with places like the subreddit. So it seems like everybody is much more close-knit, and that will hopefully allow them to come together and kind of collectively voice it. But with all this, it's just, it's an example of, like you said, who said, Odin. Yeah, you give an inch, they will take a mile. If you let them take this inch, they will just continue to do this. And I guarantee you, if they get away with this, in like a year or two, you're gonna see them come out with a $300-$400 edition of the game that's like the ridiculous edition, and it has all sorts of other gameplay altering stuff, and they're just gonna keep getting away with it over and over and over again. You got to put your foot down at some point, and the only way you do it is by collectively stopping to play the game, causing shareholders to freak out, and then they start to listen, most likely. Maybe not, maybe not. We've seen other companies that have like catastrophic flops of live service games, and then they just double down seemingly, and they're like, well, we'll try it again next time. You know, it's just really, really dumb. But he continues on. New EOD perks will be balanced too. We will remove prioritized matching option to keep everyone in the same spot. That's the other thing they were doing, is they were prioritizing matchmaking if you bought the the premium editions, basically. We will add more unique stuff to highlight the EOD version in general. We will provide the final list of new EOD perks ASAP. We continue to work on patches, new content, events, and the game release itself, no matter what. Thank you for your time, love, and hate. And thank you for your increased attention to the current situation. It comes off as like maybe it's just like lost in translation or something, to be like, thank you for your feedback, positive and negative. I think that's the vibe he's probably going for, but to be like, thank you for your love and your hate, it comes off in English, at least, as like playing victim. Like, yeah, you guys are just being hateful. It's not that you have valid frustrations and complaints, it's that you're just being hateful. You know, like it just comes off weird. So yeah, I'm sorry you feel this way. Not really how an apology should sound. I don't really expect much better than this. However, considering all that has happened, par for the course. The corrective actions are now on the right track, but hardly enough. Introducing pay-to-win features that are infinitely more potent than the ones in EOD is just tone deaf. The spawn beacon should not exist. You cannot balance items that only true believers have access to, or can feasibly access early on in the case of quest locked beacons, especially when the base effect is that powerful. Yeah, Tarkov was not in a great state before all of this. Don't think we've forgotten the past issues, and I'm definitely not one of those whose confidence in BSG was shattered. How can we trust you to deliver on any non-trivial promise at this point? Mod support, PvE for all EOD. Are you going to rent new servers? Is the company struggling financially? Is the game ever releasing? How long is post-release support going to last? Perhaps more or most importantly, do you even want to make this game anymore? Well, that's the other question, is whether, like, what compelled this, because it could just purely be greed. It could just be that they were fine, because greed is one of those things that people toss out that has like sometimes people mean it different ways. When I think of greed, I think of like somebody, imagine like, you know, your classic Scrooge McDuck type person. They're a multi-millionaire and they continue to nickel and dime everybody to milk just a little bit more cash out of them. Even though they're set, they're totally fine. Or, you know, if you run a business, you're making good money, you should be happy. But instead you go that extra step to take advantage of your customers because you're just being greedy. That's what I think of when I think of greedy. Some people just mean it as aggressive monetization or overly aggressive business practices. Sometimes I would agree that can cross into the greed realm. But what we see, like what this comes off to me as is straight desperation, like releasing a $250 version of a game that isn't technically out yet as like, sorry, not a DLC, but as some other version of the game is very, very strange to me. And maybe it is just that they got full of themselves and they thought they could get away with it. Or it could be that their company actually is very financially tight and they're just desperate to try and get any semblance of extra cash out. I don't know. Either way, in this particular context, it just comes off as greedy because they already sold a $100 version of the game. And even that had some stuff players were pretty upset about. And then they do this. So this to me is just that extra step further. And this would be classified for me, at least, as just greedy, cocky decisions. Both, they spent a lot of money on Arena, which didn't make much money. $250 for one game with nothing physical with it is crazy. Half an Xbox. Never played Tarkov, but they should make it free, but you could pay 20 bucks to be at the front of the queue. That's how squad work. I don't even like paid access to premium queues. Like that to me is also creating two tiers of players, those that can afford more or those who are just getting the initial access to the game. Like for me, any sort of like single player games, I also don't like having two tiers of players. The same thing happened with like even a game that I liked, like Hogwarts Legacy, having specific quests locked behind certain platforms, all the way back to like Batman Arkham City. If you bought Batman Arkham City secondhand, not from an official licensed partner, even like through a GameStop or something, you wouldn't get the code to get access to the Wonder Woman quest line. So you just couldn't play all of the Wonder Woman mission, or Wonder Woman, oh my God, Catwoman. I need more coffee. You couldn't get access to any of the Catwoman. You all are like, what the hell is this? Like, what game? Yeah, Batman Arkham City when you beat Wonder Woman? Anyway, you just couldn't get access to Catwoman and her questline unless you paid to go through an official vendor. If you bought it from like your buddy, you just wouldn't get it. It's insane. And I didn't like it back then when I was like early teens. I don't like it now. Like if you ever do two tiers of player bases, I think it's bad. And in this case, like with online stuff, I think it's even worse because we're talking about competitive stuff. And I really don't like that. Like, I really don't like that. But a great game otherwise? Well, yeah, I mean, Arkham City is a great game. That's what makes all of these things like all the more frustrating, is because it's like the game is really good, but you do this really disdainful, like toxic thing to monetize it. Really dumb. But this was kind of funny. So Helldivers 2, in response to all of this, decided to start poking some fun, as they should, frankly. They've decided to jump in on the drama surrounding Escape from Tarkov, poking fun at the game's new Unheard edition in the process. The game's official Twitter account posted on Saturday about items to buy in the game's acquisition center. However, there was a not-so-subtle jab at Battlestate Games in the post. Quote, "Be sure to check out the deals in the acquisition center today. With prices so low, they're practically unheard of," with a capital U. True believers can grab the CM21 Trench Paramedic for only $250. Dude, that's amazing. Hold on, where's the original post? Oh, wow. Dude, that's next level trolling. Yeah, it's available for only $250 SC, featuring increased pocket size and extra stims. Not available for free to super citizens. Okay, that's pretty freaking funny. You gotta give him credit for that. Wow, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. You know, it's like they said in that Reddit post, Tarkov was not in a great spot to begin with. So for Tarkov to now be doing this, like at what point does the community just say, enough? Like, damn it, enough. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but hopefully soon. Like, if this isn't the last straw, I'd hate to see what the last straw is, honestly. Like, I really don't know. Like, it has big spikes whenever there's updates and stuff, but it doesn't look... Was there like a big update around this time? I'm guessing that's when the big thing happened. At least from the graphs, it doesn't look like it's that big of a drop-off. Disrespect is Tarkov's target audience. He'll probably talk shit about it, but he'll obviously buy it. That's when the information came out. It's back up to 30K today after they rolled it back. Well, and this is the thing. I'm like, their rollback of it isn't even really a rollback. It's just like, yeah, we're sorry you feel that way. We'll give you guys access to it. You can still upgrade to the ridiculously priced version, and the gameplay altering stuff is still going to be there. But because it's less bad than it was, we're just gonna like roll over and be like, okay, well, it's better than it was. Okay, whatever. Moving on. Like, this is why they get away with it. Like, in this case, they tried to take a mile, people got upset, and so they walked it back and took half a mile. And now people are like, well, it's better than a mile, so I guess we should just be happy with what we've got. No, because when you let them get away with it, you end up with just another Take-Two, another EA, another Activision, another Ubisoft. Like, this is how this happens, because the company does it. They've got their committed fan base that fell in love with a franchise or a certain type of game that they made, they were really good at. And then they go and they start to take a little bit. And if people put up with it for long enough, all of a sudden it's just normal. It's why, like, I've been really ticked off at like how like the normalization of like the 3, 4, 5 different tiers of game editions that often have exclusive quests, that have exclusive stuff here and there. Like, it drives me up the wall. And like, I brought it up with Hogwarts Legacy, because if you bought the whatever, it was like a pre-order, or it was the deluxe edition that had the dark magic arena thing, if you remember that. And I made videos, like I brought that up in multiple videos, and people told me that I was being cynical, or I was being just hyper negative about the game and everything. I was like, they have an entire gameplay arena where you get to use all of the dark curses and stuff without any punishment or whatever, and you only get access to it if you're in this particular group of players. And on like the Ubisoft side, people that have been covering Ubisoft stuff for a long time have been very frustrated about how commonplace like XP boosters are, or how common like in-game maps to find like exact locations of certain gear, even though that's frankly really stupid because you could just Google it, but for some reason people pay for it. All of that stuff. Like, some of us can be really upset about this stuff, but if everybody just kind of goes along with it, it just becomes normalized, and then it's just what we're doing now, and it's whatever. So to hear that the community has like gotten really upset about this, and after they took a mile and overstepped the line by a mile and they walked it back to only half a mile, now people are like, oh, well, you know, it's better than a mile. It's very frustrating, because I will bet you an unheard edition. I will bet you an unheard edition that Tarkov's going to do another something super slimy like this. Another super slimy something like this, probably within like a year and a half. They'll give it a little bit of time to cool down, and in no time at all, we're going to hear that they're doing another $300 edition or something, and then the community is going to get upset again, and we're going to be like, well, this time we're really upset about it, and then they're going to walk it back a little bit. It's only $250. Okay, well, that's better, and everybody's just going to roll over and go with it, you know? I'd rather lose a $250 bet to you than buy Tarkov. Easy decision. Yeah, man, it's just... So, it seems bafflingly that they've just managed to get away with it, if the player numbers are to be believed. And I mean, as with all this stuff, it's just... people are going to roll over, and it's just going to be back to normal. He took my thing!